Hello everyone, Infinite Movie Recaps here. Today, I'm going to show you a sci-fi and horror movie titled The Cloverfield Paradox. There will be spoilers ahead. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy. The world's energy resources will be fully exhausted in 5 years, and mankind is at the brink of war. To solve this problem, scientists work together to build the Shepard Particle Accelerator on the Cloverfield space station. If the particle accelerator works, it would solve the global energy crisis by producing free, unlimited energy. A team of top scientists from around the world is tasked to bring the Shepard Particle Accelerator online, but are unable to get it to work. After their first try, the ignition failed, and for 2 years, they constantly have been trying to get it to work. There is a lot at stake, and the pressure of it all had started to affect the members of the crew. To make matters worse, the fuel left on the station is only enough for 3 more ignitions. They are running out of hope, and should they fail, it would mean the end of humanity. The Russian cosmonaut Volkov blames the German scientist Schmidt for their failure, and the enraged two get into a fight. The fight is quickly broken up by 2 other scientists who successfully calm them down. After the incident, they attempt the 47th test on the particle accelerator. At the same time, a famous science fiction writer is being interviewed on Earth, and he expresses his concerns about what he calls the Cloverfield Paradox. He says that every time they test the particle accelerator, they risk ripping open the membrane of space-time, which could rip apart the universe or even release monsters from different dimensions. However, his concerns are ignored, and the commander orders the start of the test. This time, they achieve a seemingly stable beam, and the crew celebrates their success. Unfortunately, the accelerator is overloaded and the station shakes violently. This causes multiple system failures and a fire breaks out in the X-deck. The German physicist and the Chinese engineer use the ventilation system to put out the fire. The crew soon realizes that Earth is gone. Volkov suggests that the gyroscope could be faulty, and as soon as they fix it, they will find Earth. However, the other female astronaut Ava soon finds out that the gyroscope has disappeared. While they are contemplating what has happened, they hear a terrible shriek. When they all congregate at the location where the noise is coming from, they find a woman stuck in the wall and fused with wires. She groans in pain and calls out Ava's name to the surprise of the crew. They cut her loose and take her to the med lab. They had to sedate her because she was in immense pain. Since she was unconscious, they could not get any answers from her, and they decided to fix the damage in the station. Strange things start to occur in the station. The Irish astronaut Mundy notices that all the worms are gone. Volkov notices that something is crawling under his skin. His eyeball seems to move independent of his control, and he starts to talk to himself. Volkov prints a 3D gun and confronts Schmidt. He calls him a traitor and demands to know what plans Germany has for them. Before he can get an answer, he convulses and dies. The missing worms violently burst out of his body, which frightens everyone present. At the med lab, the woman wakes up. She tells Ava that her name is Mina and she is an engineer working on the station. She admits that she knows everyone on the station except the Chinese woman named Tam. Mina is extremely confused because no one recognizes her, and Ava isn't even supposed to be on the Shepard because she decided to stay back on Earth. Despite her confusion, she still tells Ava not to trust the German physicist Schmidt, and that he was the one who sabotaged the Shepard. The commander hears this and checks the communication logs. He finds out that Schmidt does work for a German intelligence agency. He has been sabotaging their efforts since he got on board to make sure the accelerator doesn't work properly before Germany beats Russia. The commander is infuriated and wouldn't listen to Schmidt's pleas that he is innocent and locks him up in a room. In all this, nobody notices that Ava and the Chinese engineer are not in the group photograph hung on the wall. Instead, it is Mina who is there in place of them. At the same time, the foosball is rotating fast by itself and the colors are changing. Also, when the Irish astronaut is fixing a bolt on the wall, his hand is sucked into the wall. He cries out and his colleagues rush in to help pull him out. They soon realize, though, that something is wrong as his hand has been cut clean off. There is no blood loss and he feels no pain. They are all bewildered as to how this is possible. Not long after, the door to the place where the German physicist is being held is opened. Initially, he thinks it's the commander that let him out, but he soon realizes that something is wrong and radios everyone to converge at his location. When they all arrive, they are shocked to see Mundy's severed hand crawling towards them. They capture the arm and place a transparent box on it. Schmidt is convinced that this is all happening due to the paradox, which is caused by particles interacting with one another across two distinct realities. That is why there have been so many unusual things happening at the station. The arm is trying to write something down, so they give it a marker and it tells them to cut Volkov open. Though they are a bit squeamish, they eventually cut him open and find the missing gyroscope. With the gyroscope now in place and functional, they realize that the station is just upside down and soon locate the Sun and Earth. They can receive but not send signals to Earth. Suddenly, they hear that the war in Europe has been on for 14 months and the world is in turmoil due to the energy crisis. Another shocking news they find is that the Cloverfield station crashed in the sea 2 days ago, and all its crew members are missing. The German physicist then concludes that it isn't particles from two dimensions interacting, but that they have traveled into another universe altogether. The universe they are in is at war, and it is not their real home. Meanwhile, back home on Earth, Ava's husband hears a series of explosions and he rushes out to help at the hospital. As he is driving, he gets a call informing him that the hospital has been destroyed and that the Cloverfield station is missing. He stops at the wreckage of the hospital and sees a giant shadow passing through. He saves a crying little girl and takes her to an underground bunker. He is not sure what is happening and suggests to a colleague that it could be the Cloverfield paradox that has caused the disappearance of the station. Soon after, the alarm goes off and there is an explosion. Back on the station, the crew is preparing to repair the particle accelerator and return to the original universe. After analyzing the data, Tam thinks that it might be the condensation that caused the overload. Believing that ventilation will fix the problem, she heads out to the condensing chamber to check the circuits, while Schmidt runs a simulation and concludes that ventilation will stabilize the accelerator. Before he can tell her what he discovered, an error occurs in the locking mechanism and trap stam in the chamber. The condensing liquid also begins to flood the chamber. She calls out for help and her crewmates come to help her, but the door is sealed and they cannot do anything to save her. With the pressure slowly increasing, the door leading out of the spaceship begins to buckle. The door finally gives way and the entire chamber is instantly frozen with Tam still in it. Schmidt is inconsolable seeing her die. Tam's death makes it impossible for them to start the accelerator. Their only hope now lies with Mina, who is the only one who can take on Tam's responsibility, since she is the engineer from this universe. The commander promises Mina that once she succeeds, he will give all the pertinent data to her, so she can take an escape pod back to Earth. Mina tells the crew that due to the damage to some sections of the accelerator, they can only ignite it when it is fully charged. Ava takes Mina to get changed, and Mina tells her that in this parallel universe, her children are alive. That's why the Ava of this universe didn't come on board. Ava is extremely surprised about this new information, because in her universe, her children died in a fire. When she sees a video of her children alive and well, she decides to stay behind and prevent the tragedy from happening again. She tells the commander about her decision, and he is against it because there is already an Ava in this universe and it would only lead to problems. He changes his mind when he sees just how determined she is. The crew decides to shut down some life support equipment temporarily to generate enough power for the ignition of the accelerator. Mundy goes to work on it, and while he is working, a strange magnetic field appears in the oxygen tank. The wall begins to morph, and he is bound to the wall by some metal. Not long after, the oxygen tank explodes and causes massive damage to the station. It becomes clear that if they don't detach the maintenance deck, then the entire station will be ripped apart. Therefore, the commander brings Ava and the doctor to fix it. However, when they reach the designated location, the commander shuts himself in. He insists that someone must stay behind to manually decouple the ring. Ava and the doctor watch the commander successfully detach the deck, but sacrifices his life in the process. With the deck detached from the station, the crew is out of imminent danger. Ava decides to go to Earth with Mina and instructs Mina to make a copy of the accelerator's data. She hands the key to the ignition to the doctor, but Mina seems to have other plans. After she copies the data, she goes to get the gun in the safe. She goes into the escape pod and knocks Ava out and activates the auto-return system of the escape pod. She goes back to confront the doctor and demands he hand over the firing keys. When he refuses, she shoots him and takes it. When Ava awakes, she stops the auto-return system and rushes out. She finds out that the doctor is dead and Schmidt is injured. Mina tells Ava that her world is on the brink of tearing itself apart because of the energy crisis. She insists that the functioning particle accelerator can save them. So, she has decided to sacrifice 3 people to save 8 billion people. While Mina is distracted talking to Ava, Schmidt hits her and buys Ava enough time to run away. Mina catches up to Ava and the two get into a fight. During the tussle, Ava shoots a glass window and holds on, while Mina is ejected into deep space. Luckily, Ava shuts the door in time and survives. Later, Ava attends to Schmidt's injuries and gets the bullets out. Since the ignition needs 2 people to operate it, Ava decides to go home. Before she goes though, she sends all the accelerator data to her alternate self and warns her about the accident that leads to the death of her kids. After doing that, Ava and Schmidt start the ignition procedure simultaneously and reverse the universe shift. Next, they use the ventilation and ignite again. This time, the accelerator works perfectly. They report their success to the command center and return to Earth in an escape pod. However, when Ava's husband gets the news that she is coming back, he is horrified. It turns out that the overload caused by the firing of the accelerator had ripped a hole to multiple dimensions and terrible creatures had made their way to their Earth. The capsule carrying Ava and Schmidt finally enters Earth's atmosphere. But what welcomes them is not peace, but a massive creature that breaks through the clouds and roars. Let me know what you think about this movie in the comments below, and if you like my video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.